The chair recognizes Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it give HB 2435 a due pass recommendation.
Okay, chair recognizes Representative Kavanaugh or somebody in his place.
Mr. Chair, I can take that in his place. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment, when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, I move that the amendment in the Government and Elections Committee by Mr. Kavanaugh be adopted.
Okay, and then you have a substitute floor amendment to that amendment if you want to move that.
Yes, sir. I move that my substitute floor amendment to the Government and Elections Committee be adopted.
Hang on one second. Okay. Okay. Is there an explanation or any further discussion on that?
Yes, sir. This bill is now online signature gathering only for recall effort of school board members.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Yes. Chair recognizes Representative Bolding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaiser, you have a question?
I yield.
He yields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaiser. So this is my understanding is this is only for the recall. Did you consider having it for individuals to actually get on the ballot as well for using equal?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Bolding. Originally, that was in the bill, but at this point, it is just for online signature gathering for recall. I'm open to conversations about what you're asking for, though, as well.
Representative Bolding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaiser, does this amendment also pertain to state legislators? Can state legislators be recalled via equal? Is this just school board members?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Bolding, this is only for school board members.
Representative Bolding.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kaiser, why didn't we not include state legislatures for equal as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bolding, this is because the school boards have not been responsive to the parents, and parents, working parents especially, like myself, in one of my districts needed 18,000 signatures in 4 months, and that is incredibly hard to do, especially in a time during a pandemic when it'd be smarter for them to gather this online. So this bill is really focused on having the school boards be more responsive to parents, and so that's why it's focused in that way.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kaiser, what should the public do when state legislators aren't responsive to parents or communities? Should they also have an opportunity to go through the recall process through equal?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Bolding, unsure about that. I'm focused on the school board on this bill.
Okay.
Representative Bolding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
Thank you. I understand the sponsor's intent in order to ensure that more parents have the ability to participate if they are not satisfied with school board members who are currently serving in their communities. But I do find it very hypocritical for us to create laws that would only affect school board members in the event that the community is not satisfied with how school board members are responsive, but we are not putting those same restrictions on ourselves as state legislators. And it's for that reason I think this bill really sets a very difficult precedent that we are putting restrictions on certain elected officials that we're not willing to have on ourselves. And for that reason, I strongly urge us to oppose House Bill 2435.
Okay. Representative Kaiser, would you like closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the important thing to remember is a elected legislative member has much fewer signatures to get in order for us to be recalled. The larger school districts, of which I have 3 in my district, 18,000 signatures is crazy to get in 4 months. There is no responsiveness to the parents because of this, and that's why this is needed here and not the legislative side.
Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, members' question for you is the adoption of substitute floor amendment to instead of the government amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Appears the ayes have it, do have it, so ordered. Mr. Kaiser, we're back on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report that it gives HB 2435 a due pass recommendation as amended.
The chair recognizes Representative Powers Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise to make a comment on the bill.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think the equal system is a great system, but I think it should be more equal Right now, you can collect $5 Clean Elections contributions on Equal. We in this room can collect signatures on Equal, but citizens initiatives can't collect signatures on Equal. School board members can't collect signatures on Equal. Local races can't collect signatures on Equal, but now there's a bill to be able to remove school board members on Equal, and that is not equal, in my opinion, and I stand against this bill. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Bolding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will Mr. Kaiser yield to a question?
I yield.
He yields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaiser, during your closing remarks on the amendment, you mentioned that school board members, they face a larger hurdle in order for it to be recalled than state legislators based on the recall rules. What is different in statute from school board members' recall than it is from state legislators and their recall?
Representative Kaiser.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Bowling, that's a great question. So it's the 18,000 numbers based on the voting percentage in that district. So some of my school districts are larger than some of the legislative districts population-wise and voting-wise. And so that's why you have a disparity in the recall in legislative versus school board.
Representative Bolding.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Kaiser, are you aware that there are also legislative districts that have a greater amount of turnout and votes, so their number of signatures could actually be greater than that in your school district?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Boulding, it's a great question too. So there's over 220 school districts across the state, not that many LDs, so I imagine there could be that scenario that happens. I still believe that when we're talking about responsiveness to parents, the recall effort is not a reason for school board members to be responsive currently to parents, and it needs some adjustment so that working parents can make an impact and have their voices be heard.
Representative Bolding.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Kaiser, would you like closing comments?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Members.